Interviewing guests for your podcast when you're just getting started isn't always the easiest task. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you 3 simple tips that will turn you into a podcast interviewing machine. I'm Sebastian Rusk, and I help marketers and entrepreneurs start a podcast. Okay, tip number 1, download the one and only way that the world communicates remotely in the 21st century. Zoom.us. That is your number 1 interviewing tool. You do not need to be in a same physical location with your guest. Interviewing them on Zoom allows you both to be in the frame. You're on one side, your guest is on the other. You can record the episode, you get the audio archive, you get the video archive. Zoom sends it to you as soon as the interview's over, and Zoom also recognizes your USB mic or the condenser mic or receiver that you may be using in order to record your podcast. Your guest doesn't have to do anything other than click on a link and make sure that they're actually on the Zoom call. Now, a couple tips that you want to give your guests before interviewing them and having them on the show. Number 1, make sure that they are facing light. So even if it's artificial light, i.e., an LED light they have set up inside their house or their office, no problem. Just make sure that that light is in front of them. Very important. Next, you want to make sure that they've got some sort of audio other than just maybe their phone or their laptop microphone. For example, maybe a Blue Snowball microphone. A lot of people have USB microphones these days. If they don't, you can utilize the earbuds that come with iPhones or with any smartphone. Just make sure that your guest is in a very quiet area. You want to make sure, if at all possible, they're in an area that is carpeted, not tile, no vaulted ceilings, exposed concrete ceilings, where it's going to be very echoey and noisy. You want it to be in a very quiet place. Well lit and quiet. Well lit and quiet. Did I mention that you should probably be in a well lit and quiet place? Now this goes for you as well as the host of the show. Apply these same rules, making sure the light is in front of you, you're in a quiet place, and you've got some sort of audio mechanism to the best of your ability. If you have a podcast, you should have a podcast microphone. You can find a plethora of them on the internet, specifically on Amazon. There is a link below in the description, to my Amazon store of my preferred picks for podcast microphone. Tip number 2, make sure that your appearance is top notch. Dress for success. Make sure that you look presentable. You don't want to be interviewing people in, some beat up, raggedy old t-shirt. This is not a beat up, raggedy old t-shirt, but it is a t-shirt. But I've got a message on it. But you want to make sure that you're presentable. If you wear makeup, put makeup on. If you brush your hair, brush your hair. If you brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Just make sure that you are presentable. Some people like to go as far as making sure they can dull a little bit of shine on their forehead. That's easy to do. At any local drugstore has a shine control makeup contraption of some form that you can utilize and pick up for under $10 that will dull the shine of your face. But make sure that your appearance is as presentable as possible and you look professional. Remember, this is your podcast and you're doing an interview. Now, of course, if you're not doing a video interview, which I don't know why you would not want to if you're using Zoom anyway, well, then stay in your PJs, forget about the makeup, who cares about the lighting? But if you're doing a video podcast, which you should be, because Zoom, gives you the video and the audio, so why not? Then you want to make sure that you look presentable. And on to my 3rd and final tip. I got this from one of my mentors, of which I've never met, the one and only Mr. Larry King. It's called the 80-20 rule when you're interviewing someone. They're going to talk 80% of the time, and yep, you guessed it, you're going to talk 20% of the time. That's the way that any interview should be conducted. Well, because it's an interview about them, not about you as the host. So you want to make sure that you're talking 20% of the time, they're talking 80% of the time. And that shouldn't be a problem if you're the one kicking off the show, introducing your guest, and then asking a question and allowing them to answer that question. If you'd like to elaborate on that process of asking a question, having them answer, and going with that flow throughout your show, but you like to dig a little bit deeper on the stuff you're talking about because sometimes the topic gets really neat. So what you'll do is add one word into the questions that you're asking. So for instance, if you've got a printer on your show and you say, so where is the world of printing going in the 21st century? And they say, I think it's continuing to thrive and change and adapt to digital and innovate, etc. Why is that? That's a powerful question. I got those two tips from the legendary Larry King. It's called the 80-20 rule. Make sure that you're talking 20% of the time, they're talking 80% of the time, and you want to sprinkle in and spice things up a little bit. Ask why, or why is that? Well, I hope you're leaving this video with at least one or two things that you didn't know about interviewing people on your podcast. Any questions about podcast interviews or podcasting in general, or heck, any questions about any video on this channel, please feel free to comment below. I respond to each and every one of you lovely people. I'm Sebastian Rusk, signing off from the podcast Launch Lab Studio. We'll talk to you next time.